The Battle of Dien Bien Phu, fought between March and May 1954, was one of the most significant and symbolic military confrontations of the 20th century, marking the end of French colonial rule in Indochina and paving the way for the rise of communist power in Southeast Asia. It took place in a remote valley located in the northwestern part of Vietnam, near the border with Laos, where the French High Command, led by General Henri Navarre, sought to establish a fortified base to block Viet Minh movements into Laos and to draw them into a conventional battle that the French believed they could win thanks to their superior firepower, artillery, and air support. The French plan, known as Operation Castor, began in November 1953 with the airborne landing of thousands of paratroopers to seize the valley and construct an airstrip for supplies and reinforcements. The French fortified the valley floor with a network of strongpoints named after women, such as Beatrice, Gabrielle, and Isabelle, intending to create an impregnable fortress that would lure the Viet Minh into a trap. However, the strategy underestimated both the determination and logistical capabilities of General Võ Nguyên Giáp, the military commander of the Viet Minh, who combined revolutionary zeal with careful strategic calculation. Giáp rejected the idea of a quick assault and instead launched one of the most impressive logistical operations of modern warfare. Tens of thousands of Vietnamese laborers, including peasants, porters, and soldiers, transported tons of artillery, ammunition, food, and equipment through thick jungle, mud, and mountains, often by bicycle or on their backs. By the time the French realized the scale of the operation, the Viet Minh had positioned heavy artillery pieces and anti-aircraft guns on the surrounding hills, allowing them to dominate the valley and threaten every corner of the French camp. On March 13, 1954, Giáp launched his assault on the French positions, beginning with a massive artillery barrage that destroyed key defenses and silenced French guns. The first strongpoints, Beatrice and Gabrielle, fell within days after fierce fighting and heavy casualties on both sides. The French troops, many of them elite paratroopers and foreign legionnaires, fought bravely, but their positions were progressively isolated and overrun. As the battle dragged on, the situation for the French garrison became desperate. The Viet Minh's ability to dig complex trench networks and tunnels brought them closer to French lines day by day, while constant shelling, torrential rains, and the destruction of the airstrip made resupply and evacuation nearly impossible. French aircraft attempted to drop supplies by parachute, but many of the packages fell into Viet Minh-controlled zones. Medical facilities were overwhelmed, food and ammunition ran dangerously low, and morale began to collapse. Meanwhile, the Viet Minh continued to tighten their encirclement, employing human wave assaults supported by relentless artillery fire. Giap's forces, numbering nearly 50,000 men, faced about 15,000 French troops trapped in the valley, yet the Vietnamese soldiers maintained their offensive despite suffering enormous losses. By late April, the French positions had been reduced to small, isolated pockets of resistance. Communications broke down, and commanders could no longer coordinate defenses effectively. On May 7th, after 56 days of continuous fighting, the French stronghold finally fell. General Christian de Castries, the commander of the French garrison, surrendered to the Viet Minh, and around 10,000 French soldiers were taken prisoner, many of whom would die during the harsh marches and captivity that followed. The fall of Dien Bien Phu was not only a military catastrophe, but also a profound psychological shock for France, exposing the limits of colonial power in the face of determined nationalist resistance. The consequences of the battle were immediate and far-reaching. Internationally, it forced France to the negotiating table, leading to the Geneva Conference in July 1954, The resulting Geneva Accords marked the end of the First Indochina War and divided Vietnam temporarily along the 17th parallel, the North under the communist government of Ho Chi Minh, and the South under the pro-Western regime of Emperor Bao Dai, supported by the United States. The French withdrew from Indochina entirely, signaling the collapse of the old colonial order. For the Viet Minh, Dien Bien Phu was a moment of triumph that symbolized the power of determination, unity, and strategy over technological superiority.